There's somebody we get to travel with each and every Thursday. She is bold in the proclamation of the gospel as well. It's time for a chat with Pat, and it is with Joni.
Yeah, Joan Watson, and we're talking about her book, Making a Pilgrimage, a Companion for Catholics. Joan is wonderful. Joni, I am so thankful you weren't ghosting me. Thank you.
I was not. I was not. My guardian angel forgot to remind me it was Thursday.
Oh, I know. Sometimes that
So
happens. Yeah, okay, sounds good. Hey, before we move into the chapter on other shrines and sites, the chapter that we finished last week on Rome does end with a little tidbit on guidebooks, which I find quite fascinating that there were you tend to think that's like something that just came about in the 20th century. Tell us a little bit about the early guidebooks.
Yeah, Pat, I had the exact same thought when I started reading about ancient pilgrimage and they started talking about guidebooks, and I had the exact same thought. I thought, wait, isn't that something we do? I had no idea that was something ancient. But it was, and for good and for ill, because, I think many of us have had either a bad guidebook or a bad guide, unfortunately, in some of the holy places. And they were there then, too. Some lies spread through, some exaggerations spread through bad guidebooks. But there were also really good guidebooks because people would go on pilgrimage and they wouldn't know what they were seeing. And so they would rely on both word of mouth, but also guidebooks. And it kind of goes into the next chapter when I talk about the Camino, the ancient pilgrimage route across Spain. We know a lot of it about it because of an ancient guidebook. So people wanted to pass on what they had seen. They wanted to share that. And so, we have ancient guidebooks. You just have to be careful that you pick up one that you trust, that's trustworthy.
That was like the 12th century was the first guidebook. Yeah. I mean, that just blew me away. It was like, what? That was like before the printing press.
Right. Yeah, and we just think, there's so many times, even when I go on pilgrimage, I'm kind of shaken to remember, I'm not the first one to do this. You become so insular and think the Americans are the first one that are going across seas to go on pilgrimage, or I'm the first one. Yeah. I remember, I may have told the story on the show before, but I remember being in San Clemente, an ancient church in Rome, and realizing that Cyril and Methodius had gone on pilgrimage here before me. Mm-hmm. And just that realization that this isn't about me, but I'm in the footsteps of these great saints. And that's the same thing with guidebooks, right? Even the saints probably use guidebooks. St. Therese probably used a guidebook when she went to Rome.
Isn't that amazing? So let's talk a little bit about St. James. First of all, you kind of talk about one of the places that most people go on pilgrimage, if not to the Holy Land in Rome that we've already talked about, are Marian sites. And you talk about Our Lady of Guadalupe being the most visited in Mexico, Our Lady of Lourdes, obviously, we could probably throw in Fatima, lots of different Marian locations. Why do you think so many people go to Marian sites?
I think Marian sites remind us that God became man, and that God became man out of love for us. And I think there's a tenderness and an intimacy in those shrines to Mary that remind us of our own humanity, but remind us that God loves us. We kind of have themes at the company I work for. We kind of have themes on each pilgrimage, like God is light, or God is active, or God is this, or God is beauty. And when we were doing a Marian pilgrimage, I said, I think we need to make it God was a baby. I think that's the theme that should be for this Marian shrine. Because it's a good reminder to us of the love of God, that God, and he continues to love us. Like when you were talking about Lourdes and Fatima and Mexico City, these are ways that God is continually active in our lives, showing us that he's continually loving us. If he didn't love us, we would cease to exist. And so I think people are drawn to Our Lady because they're drawn to God's love. And she is such a reminder to us that God became man, that God has a mother that also loves us and cares for us. And so I think some of the most, the major pilgrimage sites are also revolving around Our Lady for that reason.
Well, one of the things in this chapter that I certainly learned a lot about was St. James, the sons of thunder. I could just see James heading out there, to Spain thinking he was going to convert the world, And so can you tell us a little bit about St. James' experience in missionary work and then how Our Lady fits into that?
Yes. So, we're talking about strong personalities like Paul and like all the, the great evangelists. We have to think of James and John, right? Like you said, the sons of thunder. And so who's going to accompany, good old Barnabas, son of encouragement. But then we have James going off, to go convert the end of the earth, right? The Spain was really considered the ends of the earth. And that's where Christ sends his apostles, right? To Judea, to Samaria, to the ends of the earth. So James actually goes to Spain, to what is like the farthest corner of the earth at that, known at that point. And he goes to convert these people, and he runs into a lot of problems. He has difficulty converting the people that live there. And one of the most, I think, unknown stories and most unknown shrines, at least to us, not in Spain, but to us, is Our Lady of the Pillar.
Yeah.
James is discouraged. James is having trouble converting Spain. And Our Lady appears to him in what's now called Zaragoza, but was a town called Caesar Augustus. It was a Roman town. And he appears to James alongside this river, she appears to James alongside this river on a pillar. And she is appearing to him because she told him before he left, I will appear to you when you most need encouragement from your mother. Your mother will come to you and encourage you. So Mary's actually still alive in Ephesus with St. John, with his brother, and she comes and bilocates to Spain, which is so beautiful. They don't consider it a Marian apparition because she was still alive. It's a bilocation.
Wow.
She comes to Zaragoza and encourages James in his work. And now there's a beautiful shrine, Our Lady of the Pillar, there in Zaragoza along the river. The pillar is there, and supposedly she was telling, James, the faith of the Spaniards will be as strong as this pillar someday. You just have to remember, be persevering in the work.
Right.
It's a beautiful shrine. Beautiful shrine. I think many of us don't know the story, but of course the Spaniards flock to it. And there are lots of connections. Christopher Columbus actually landed in America on the feast of Our Lady of the Pillar and dedicated our land to Our Lady because of that. So there are lots of connections that we don't even think about with Our Lady of the Pillar. So it's one of my favorite places.
Oh, I that was a new one to me. And the first Mass in the New World was said on this feast day. I mean, boy, all this stuff was amazing. And Joni, we're going to pick up next week talking more about St. James and his the road that we all take, that people take to get to his grave. So we'll talk about that next week. Thanks for being with us, Joni.
Thanks, Pat.
Have a good
God
weekend. Bye-bye.